Now, things can't get any worse than the last 2 weeks for Democrats unless you hear what happened this morning, where new polling shows they have hit a record low approval rating. This comes as President Trump has the country feeling like things are going in the right direction. Let's take a look.
The view voters have of each party, neither is good, but look at the numbers here for Democrats. 27% positive, more than double, 55% negative. And we'll just put this on a graph for you in our poll here. This goes back a long ways, and you can see the trend line for both parties. This is what's happened to the Democrats since the election.
That is astonishing, Steve. That's an historic low, right?
That is in more than 30 years of this poll. We've never seen either party hit a number this low in terms of negatives here. One thing to note on this for the Democrats, too, a lot of that negative rating, it's coming from Democrats themselves, and a lot of that is coming from Democrats who say the party is being too cooperative in their view with Donald Trump.
So there is good news and bad news if you're on the right as a conservative or Republican. Bad news is this, and it's two things. One, most of the people in that poll believed that the Democrats are not fighting hard enough. That is troubling. That screams mental illness. That screams insurrection, okay? And number two, that there are activist judges that are willing to hold up the Trump administration in the courtroom. That is what's troubling for me. Now, on the good news side of everything, clearly this is a record low for the Democrats. They have no respectable resistance. They're not going to stop President Trump. We know that as a fact at this point. And they have no leadership.
Well, the Democrats have had two horrific weeks, and it really just comes down to what Donna said. They've got no leader. They've got no movement. The only thing they've got is Trump derangement syndrome. It's the only thing that brings them together. And the only thing they got out of this week was, well, who's going to primary Chuck Schumer? What are we all about? AOC and Bernie Sanders are the only people in their entire party that can get a crowd of over 20 to show up. So the only thing they are, I mean, they're afraid of Trump. Trump owns them. And it was a total slam dunk for the Republican Party.
Now, to be fair and shoot it straight here, the Republican Party, they got to deliver the results. So this is great news for us, obviously, but the results will be the nail in the coffin for years to come. And that's why I always bring this up, because if they don't deliver, that means the Democrats can get back in power midterms and possibly 2028. Now, I still believe everything's going to work out in our favor. Now, here is CNN repeating the same disastrous poll for the Democrats.
Brutal reality for Democrats as they struggle to mount a unified opposition to President Trump. Americans' favorable views of the Democratic Party's brand are at a record low, just 29%. That's compared to 36% for Republicans. It is the lowest ever recorded for Democrats in CNN polling going back more than 30 years. As you can see, the party's numbers dropping a staggering 20 points in just 4 years. The CNN SRSR's poll also found 57% of Democrats and Democratic-leaning voters are more interested in seeing their party leaders stop the GOP agenda, compared to 42% who are more interested in cutting bipartisan deals. It is a big shift from where the party stood at the start of Trump's first term in 2017.
Now, so you guys already know what people on the right are going to say about this polling, but let's hear from someone on the left. Here is Molly on MSDNC, really giving a masterclass on why Democrats have never been less popular.
Look, this is a policy versus politics problem, right? Biden world, very good on policy, grew the economy, very bad on politics, right? Unable to communicate with voters. We're seeing this sort of hangover from that a little bit. And also losers are not popular. So they lost, people are mad, Democrats are mad. There's a ton of Monday morning quarterbacking.
Now, I know I said that she gave a masterclass, but I think I'm going to have to take that back, because she said something that continues to show that it's not just surface level on why they continue to lose. It's deeper than that. She claims that the economy was the strongest ever over the past 4 years under Joe Biden. They just failed to communicate that. Okay, so let's walk that dog. The economy was strong for who is the most important question in all of this. It was strong for Wall Street, but not Main Street. And that right there, ladies and gentlemen, is why they will continue to fail. And to back up my point, here is part of that same polling that shows that the mood of America is headed in the right direction. They believe we're better off than we were under Joe Biden.
First of all, the mood of the country. This really jumped out. We ask folks, is it on the right direction or the wrong direction? That 44%, you say right direction, that's up since November. And if that doesn't seem like a lot, the last time it cracked 40%, you got to go back to 2012. The last time it actually hit 44 or higher, January of 2004. So a lot of this is Republicans, but independents, that number is also up since the election on the direction of the country.
Now, obviously, polling from MSNBC and CNN, these are not the most respected polls. And if they're already showing how Americans are favoring Trump, I think that screams a disaster for Democrats. Now, here is Governor of Maryland, Wes Moore, telling the brutal truth about his own party.
Well, there were voices within your party on Capitol Hill who offered alternatives. They just weren't listened to. Do you think there is just no leader
I don't see
in
a
the
difference.
party?
I don't see a difference. And frankly, I don't think the American people see a difference. If they are not hearing an alternative, if they're not hearing an alternative plan, if they're not hearing the plan to push back and fight back, if they're not seeing what we are doing in the streets and in the communities and in the neighborhoods to fight for their best interests, I think for the American people, they just look at it as theater. And that is the frustrating thing. The performative politics, people are done and they're exhausted by it. They just want to see results. And that's exactly what we're trying to provide here in the state of Maryland.
Now, what he said towards the end is exactly where I stand politically with everything, right? I support President Trump, voted for President Trump. I love his agenda, but ultimately the judgment will come in the results. And that's exactly where everybody across the political spectrum, generally speaking, that's what they ultimately want. They don't want this divisiveness, violent rhetoric, going back and forth, screaming, throwing things, cursing. That's not really what American people want to see. They're already dealing with enough drama in their own lives. They just want results. So obviously, one of the biggest questions coming out of this entire horrific 2 weeks for Democrats is, what are you guys going to do about Chuck Schumer? Well, here is Ghetto Congressman Jasmine Crockett answering that question.
Question: do you think Senate Democrats should replace Chuck Schumer?
I think Senate Democrats have to sit down and take a look and decide whether or not Chuck Schumer is the one to lead in this moment.
You're close with Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York. Some of your fellow House Democrats say, and not just progressives, by the way, we've heard that moderates have said this too, that they're ready to support her to challenge Chuck Schumer in a Democratic primary. Would you get behind that?
That's 4 years from now. If you were asking me at least in 2 years, then I would have an absolute answer. But I can tell you that there are a lot of people that are watching his leadership in this moment. This is the moment. We don't even know what elections will look like in 4 years, if we will have elections. And so I definitely think that younger, fresher leadership may be something that many of us, not just depending on what part of the spectrum you're on, but many Americans may be looking for, especially in the state of New York.
That is actually frightening as I'm listening to her, I guess, spell all that out. Because what really stands out to me is this. The party is going to continue to go far left. That's exactly what that sounds like. There is no moderate. There is no trying to go back to the center. We're all in on this progressive stuff. And what that means for Republicans is that they're going to continue to pick up moderate Democrats. I say this all the time. MAGA is really a 90s Democrat, working class. And what's more frightening is when your retirement is based upon what the federal government is doing, which is why you need to listen to this warning.
Because we know that Trump's return is set to usher in a new golden age. But let's be honest, there are growing tensions with China, Canada, and Mexico, which is rattling the markets. That's why Warren Buffett just dumped $133 billion in stocks. And this is why thousands of informed IRA and 401k savers are now shielding their savings with gold. This is why you could trust the experts at Colonial Metals Group to help you do the same. So instead of you worrying about when the market may crash, you should go to freegoldguide.com/Devori or call 1-800-757-5158 so you can get a free gold guide on how to bulletproof your wealth tax-free. Plus, you can see if you qualify for a free home safe or $7,500 worth of free silver. Once again, that is freegoldguide.com/Devori or call 1-800-757-5158 or hit the link in the description below.
Now, let's go from feeling frightened by what she had to say to having a smile on their faces because Scott Jennings, I mean, he's funny, okay? Here he is trolling Jake Tapper by giving thanks to Chuck Schumer for working with President Trump.
Why are Jeffries and Schumer on such different pages?
Well, because first of all, I just want to say I'm grateful for Chuck Schumer today. He helped defeat a racist Jim Crow filibuster in the Senate. And to stand up against the racist Jim Crow filibuster tactics was a moment of pure courage. And I just think he should be lauded by anybody in any party for that. That's number one. Number two.
It's a deep cut. Let me just explain for people at home.
I'm just saying.
When there was a Democratic push against the filibuster, people in the Democratic Party were saying it was a racist era, Jim Crow era.
And it was
tactic, the filibuster. So he's being cheeky.
And not
all right, back to
not only that, but he saved us from the Democrats in the House, laying off every single veteran in the federal government. Chuck Schumer, working with Donald Trump, saved us from that. So I think he deserves a lot of credit this morning.
Scott,
every veteran would have been laid off. Every veteran would have been laid off.
Scott's having a lot of fun at the Democrats' disarray. And I tell you what, as Republicans this week, we have overdosed on popcorn watching this Democrat civil war. But if you look at CNN's poll out this morning, I think the big number to look at, 16% of Democrats, that's 1 in 6, say their party is too extreme. That's the voice Democrats should be listening to, and the one Hakeem Jeffries should be listening to right now. The far left is going to crash this ship if they let him.
Well, it seems to me that they are letting them because they have voices like Jasmine Crockett and AOC continuing to be the louder voices in the party. And let me just make something clear here, okay? The filibuster narrative pushed by the radical left, like in AOC, as Jim Crow, was nothing more than a manipulation tool to justify seizing more power. And now Democrats are eating their own because of it. And remember, Democrats wanted to get rid of the filibuster. In case you don't know what that is, it gives a senator the ability to debate on an issue endlessly. The only way to stop that debate and end it is by getting 60 votes on a piece of legislation. So when it works for Democrats, they want to get rid of it. But when it works against them, they'll want to use it.
You know, AOC called on Senate Democrats to use the filibuster to block this funding bill. A little bit ironic after she called to abolish the filibuster over abortion in 2022. In fact, 30 Senate Democrats who used the filibuster on Friday to block this funding bill previously voted to override the filibuster. 7 more campaigned to abolish it. You know, you previously called to abolish the filibuster over gun control and abortion, but you are urging your Senate colleagues to use it this week. So should the Democratic Party of the future keep the filibuster or not?
I think that's a debate for the Democratic Party of the future. And we're going to need lots of these kinds of debates about how we lower costs, about how we protect Social Security in the face of onslaughts to privatize it by Elon Musk and Donald Trump and Senator Rick Scott out of Florida. I think you are offering the premise that somehow debate within the Democratic Party is a bad or unhealthy thing, and I'm embracing it. I think that this party needs generational debate about the issues. We have been too much in the lockstep in the past.
So I'll tell you what, you could see that there are different ideas about the direction that the Democratic Party should go in. But one thing is for sure, they are exposing themselves every single day. And all that does is actually give more momentum to the Trump administration to put this mandate into action and deliver results for the American people. Now, in this next clip, I want you to pay attention to how deflated Kirsten Welker on NBC sounds and the response Chris Murphy gives her.
Our new NBC News poll, as you just saw, shows the Democratic Party at an all-time low approval rating. Why do you think Democrats are failing to connect with Americans at this critical moment of urgency, which you describe?
Well, it's what I just talked about. I mean, I think Americans want the Democratic Party to stand up and fight and to take risks. Listen, I understand that had we gone into a shutdown, even for a handful of days, it would have been difficult. But it would have sent a message that the Democratic Party is not going to be bullied by Donald Trump. We are not going to let them write spending bills unilaterally that cut programs for people we care about, that give the president new and extraordinary power.
You know, it's as if we're living in two different planets, because if I was a Democrat, I don't think that's what I would actually want, right? I don't want violence. I don't want erratic behavior. I don't want disorganization. You know, I want you to provide an alternative solution and articulate that. Now, this brings me to the question of this video. What do you think about my point of view that the Democrats have been hijacked by progressives, and I don't believe they're coming back from that. I think they're going to continue to go far left, and more moderate Democrats will fall under the Republican Party, or at least vote for the Republican Party as an independent. Let me know what your thought process is about all that in the comment section below. Now, yesterday, President Trump issued a major order where he invoked the Aliens Enemy Act of 1798. This gives him the ability to deport these TDA gang members ASAP without going through the legal process. You guessed it, an activist judge that was appointed by Obama blocked this order, and now all hell is breaking loose. If you guys missed out on that video and more stories from yesterday, all you have to do is click on it because it's coming up right now.